Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God. Back with you with the next video in my Line of God Daily Diary series. As usual, before I discuss what I have achieved since yesterday's Daily Diary video, I want to read you a chapter from the Bible. Today it will be the book of Job, chapter 30. But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose father I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock. Yea, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished? For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness in former time, desolate and waste, who cut up mallows by the bushes, and juniper roots for their meat. They were driven forth from among men, they cried after them as after a thief, to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, in caves of the earth, and in the rocks. Among the bushes they brayed, under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools, yea, children of base men. They were viler than the earth. And now I am their song. Now am I their song, yea, I am their byword. They abhor me, they flee far from me, and spare not to spit in my face. Because he hath loosed my cord, and afflicted me, they have also let loose the bridle before me. Upon my right hand rise the youth, they push away my feet, and they raise up against me the ways of their destruction. They mar my path, they set forward my calamity, they have no helper. They came upon me as a wide breaking in of waters. In the desolation they rolled themselves upon me. Terrors are turned upon me. They pursue my soul as the wind, and my welfare passeth away as a cloud. And now my soul is poured out upon me. The days of affliction have taken hold upon me. My bones are pierced in me in the night season, and my sinews take no rest. By the great force of my disease is my garment changed. It bindeth me about as the collar of my coat. He hath cast me into the mire, and I am become like dust and ashes. I cry unto thee, and thou dost not hear me. I stand up, and thou regardest me not. Thou art become cruel to me. With thy strong hand thou opposest thyself against me. Thou liftest me up to the wind, thou causest me to ride upon it, and dissolvest my substance. For I know that thou wilt bring me to death, and to the house appointed for all living. Howbeit he will not stretch out his hand to the grave, though they cry in his destruction. Did not I weep for him that was in trouble? Was not my soul grieved for the poor? When I looked for good, then evil came unto me, and when I waited for light, there came darkness. My bowels boiled and rested not. The days of affliction prevented me. I went mourning without the sun. I stood up, and I cried in the congregation, I am a brother to dragons, and a companion to owls. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat. My harp also is turned to mourning, and my organ into the voice of them that weep. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Something that is I actually don't want to offer any analysis of this chapter. I actually saw, like, reading the start of the next chapter, something that I'll go ahead and actually discuss in tomorrow's video. So that should be good. Actually, with the rest of the video, the time in this video, first of all, I want to go ahead now and transition over to what I have achieved since yesterday's Daily Dive video. Since yesterday's Daily Dive video, I worked at my core. I uploaded and scheduled 5 workout videos. I uploaded and scheduled many video game videos, and I have created this Daily Dive video for 6/4/23. And with no further achievements since yesterday's Daily Dive video, I want to go ahead and talk about some of the current events going on today in the United States of America, in my life, I guess I should say. As a citizen of the United States of America living here in Honolulu, Hawaii, I have been but a few current events caught my interest that I wanted to discuss. Should you be watching this 100 years from now and are wondering what the Spirit of God was thinking at this time period? Well, first of all, let's start with the U.S. debt ceiling. So the United States is approximately, let's see, what is the current US debt? The current US debt is 31 trillion 462 billion 154 million 854,903 dollars and some amount of cents. You get the idea. The idea being, of course, well, that the United States is incredibly in debt. To the countries with the most debt, for example, um, you know, the United States is, I do believe, the country with the most debt in the world. So that is very interesting because that's not good. I don't quote me on it being the most debt in the world. It certainly appears to be this way. I do believe so. So that is yeah, 31 plus trillion dollars of debt. Now, I don't believe the United States has ever defaulted on its debt, and default would be horrible for the country, the economy, and more than anything, the country's reputation. You don't want to default because then no one will trust you with a debt. And I say this first. I have to address the elephant in the room, which is that in my gospel, I write about how Narengelicals never take debt. And that's how I live my life. I have no debt. I have no payments to anybody. I don't owe anybody anything. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to God for that fact, for everything that He has provided me with, which is, the ability to live a debt-free life, and quite comfortably, I might add. I live quite a comfortable life. It's not extravagant, but living here in an apartment with my two cats, I'm happy. I don't feel as though just because, like for example, let's say I pursued a mortgage for a home worth $300,000. I'm okay renting for now. Why? Because Narengelicals never take debt. Why? Because the borrower is a servant to the lender, is the King James Version translation. And the rich ruleth over the poor. And so for me, my wisdom as God incarnate is that the shortest path to wealth is to never take debt. Now, one of the ironic things about my wisdom and the current world is that the countries with massive GDP, like if we look at the list of countries by external debt off of Wikipedia, so the United States is $31 trillion. So let's just look at countries by GDP also. So the United States has the highest GDP of approximately, going off of the IMF, International Monetary Fund number, the United States GDP is almost 27 trillion, I believe. I don't know if that's, yeah, almost 27 trillion. And they have 31 trillion of debt, for example. So the idea is like a lot of these countries, like China has 2.64 trillion and a GDP around 20 trillion. And so a lot of the top countries, like the UK is the second of debt with almost 9 trillion, but it is sixth in GDP. So it's not like the US is the only country that has debt that, doesn't, that has a, like, it's not the only country with debt, although it does have the most debt by far, and though it also does have the highest GDP, which, well, that is not necessarily by far. The U.S. and China are by far the highest countries with GDP, with third place Japan being at just 4.4 trillion, compared to, of course, China around 20 trillion, the U.S. around 26 trillion. So, by far, it has some of the highest GDP, and that's why I mentioned that's ironic, because of the fact that I, as God incarnate, say that you should never take debt, because I don't believe that a life with debt, while it allows you to grow more quickly, it doesn't necessarily mean that that growth is real. And for example, one of the ideas I think about this, there are a lot of, let's not talk about like the specifics of it. It's more that I'm very interested to see if you're watching this 100 years from now, and we look then, as we look back now, then what happens with the U.S. debt? Will they default? I don't believe they will. But how will they pay down this amount? Because like the amount of revenue they generate, I think is like close to 4 trillion. I don't know. Like how much tax revenue. So basically the US brought, in 2022, it says, I'm reading online, it says approximately $5 trillion. A little bit under 5 trillion. So even with 5 trillion, think about all the systems they maintain. Number one is military, like Army, Navy, Air Force. Number one, to keep the country safe. After that, they'll have probably like their social services, like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever other services they have. Like those services are like really important as well. But then there will be other requests, like environmental requests, like state parks, things like that, like national parks. Like someone has to pay for all that, right? So it's actually like just super fascinating because I don't know, like, because the debt, if you think about how much the debt is growing per year, the debt is at 31 trillion. So how much does the U.S. debt grow every year? The U.S. debt, it's basically, one thing is for certain, it's growing by trillions of dollars a year. And if this debt is left unchecked, there's no way the U.S. is going to be all right from a from an economic perspective, because of the fact that, well, they don't have a means of combating that debt. And so that's why I say, um, really the time is now for the United States to decide what kind of nation it wants to be in terms of facing debt. Because, like I said, if that debt is left unchecked, then what will end up happening is it will be horrible for the country, because it's right at that cusp of the revenue almost being equal to the interest payment. And if they don't face it now, the United States will be in a horrible position in the future. So definitely now is not the time in my opinion, now is not the time for spending. Now is the time for paying down that debt, and generations, and and 30 years from now, the children of today will thank those people if they make that decision. And if not, it will end up, it will be a real problem for them, because the revenue will be less than the debt accumulation every year. And at that point, default may be the only option, which would be horrible for the country. So that's some of that's one of the current events I wanted to share, and I'll be sharing more current events in future videos. And so with that, I want to go ahead and say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light to be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.